Hey folks, in this tutorial we're going to go over the 3 example scenes of the GetSpectrumDataHelper package. Each of these scenes is a variation on a simple but elegant audio visualizer. You can open any of the 3 of them, plug in audio of your choice, and hit play and start visualizing sounds. So let's go to the Lost Atom GetSpectrumDataHelper folder. We'll go to scenes, and here's the 3 examples. Let's just click the main one. Okay, and then if we go to our audio source, we've got the package comes with 3 sort of test sound audio files that you can use to get started, though you'll probably have your own music and audio. But this first one's a good one just to test. It'll just go through a bunch of notes, low to high. So it's a good kind of sanity check. So let's leave that one plugged in. It's plugged into our audio source. And we've got our GetSpectrumDataHelper script on this on this game object. We've named GetSpectrumDataHelper, and let's hit play. Cool. So you get the idea there. Let's go ahead and switch it out. We'll do some of these BBC sounds that are kind of fun. Some like forest sounds. Cool. So there you have that. Let's go over some of these controls real quick. You've got in your setup section, so you can pick between audio source and audio listener. So if you set it to audio listener, it's going to analyze the audio that the audio listener component is ultimately, receiving, and usually that's on your camera. So it's and if you've got like spatialized audio, and it's your audio is varying on your camera's position and stuff, it'll respond to that. So whatever the audio listener is capturing, and if you switch it to audio source, then it's just going to analyze directly the audio source that's playing. And in that case, you got to connect grab your game object with the audio source and drag and drop it to the audio source parameter. Then you've got your channel select, left or right, or you can do average, which will take the average of both the left and the right channel. Just keep in mind it's doing the whole operation twice, once for the left, once for the right. So it will go slower, but I haven't really measured exactly how much slower. So I'll leave it on left for now. Then you've got FFT window selection. This is the FFT, the fast Fourier transform, or FFT, that GetSpectrum data performs, requires this window type that kind of defines kind of the fade in and fade out, you could think of it as, of like a given sample as it's being sampled. I'll go into it more in another video, or you can look online. If you just want to get going, all you got to know is Hanning's a good one and Blackman Harris is a good one. And you can flip through them while things are going just to see the differences. They're somewhat minute and it's hard to tell. The only real big visual difference is between rectangular and triangle and the rest of them. So I would probably avoid those first 2. But yeah, we'll stick with Hanning. Then sample count. These are all going to have to be a power of 2 for GetSpectrum data to do its magic. But our script, GetSpectrumDataHelper, it's using get spectrum data in the script, but it's always going to return just 128 values that kind of match notes on a keyboard, or at least frequencies on a keyboard. So why the sample count then? The sample count's still going to affect the accuracy of those 128 values. And we'll have a theory video that goes over that, why that is too, if you're interested. But if you just, again, want to just get going, I recommend 2048 gives pretty good accuracy. It's a good kind of accuracy and speed balance. If you needed to be a little speedier, I would go 1024 or 512. And if you want super accurate, I would go up to 4000 or 8000 samples, but it will chug and you'll start to feel less responsive. So I'll leave it at 2000. Actually, I'll switch it to 1024 just to show something in a second. Then output type, we can select voltage or decibels. We're going to want decibels, but if you set it to voltage, then it's going to output basically the raw values that GetSpectrum data returns. And then decibels will be the more processed values that match better the way we hear, that are going to give you visually more what you'd probably expect. But you never know, maybe you're testing something, maybe you if you set it to voltage, you're going to get what you'll see in a lot of examples too online is the base values kind of really wildly high, and then everything else kind of falls off really low. But decibels will be a better distribution of how we're hearing the frequencies. Then we've got equal loudness contour. We'll do a video on that too. I would just leave it on. And if you lose these keys, it's not the end of the world. You could just turn it off. But you should be able to go to this preset, GSTH equal loudness contour, and then click it, and and get your graph back. And those presets live inside the editor folder inside GetSpectrumDataHelper. So that's there. Then we've got our voltage multiplier. That will only be applicable when we've got output type set to voltage. And then decibels multiplier will apply to decibel output. And reference value, we'll do a video on that. I just don't want to do it all in then one big long video. But just know you can slide it around and see what it does. It's essentially going to kind of lift your values up and down. This is a good, you could just leave the default if you want to just get started. Then we've got smoothing and clamping. Essentially, we've got a smoothing operation going. If you don't want any smoothing, you can set it to 0. I recommend somewhere around 0.2 is nice. But essentially what that's doing is when a value jumps up, it'll, instead of snapping right back down, it'll slowly fall back down unless unless it pops back up to a higher value again. So I'll show you visually what that does in a minute, and it'll make sense. Then we have a debug graph. Let's see, if you see it in 3D, it'll look like that. But if you switch your scene view to 2D, you get it like this, and that's kind of nice. Yeah, so that's all our settings. If you mess with all of these and you kind of end in a place where you're not really sure, you can go up, click on the 3 dots and say reset values to default, and everything will go back to the recommended settings. And I'll turn the debug graph back on. Let's play a sound real quick. Okay, Okay, I'm gonna move my game view out of the way here. Turn off these audio visualizer cubes. Okay, so just really quickly to show you the smoothing, if I set this to say 2, that means it's going to take 2 seconds for this value to fall all the way back down to 0, unless it gets a higher value than its current state, then it jumps back up. So you'll see. So see how these values are kind of slowly coming back down. If I set it to 0, then it's going to look more erratic. It'll be more real time, but it'll look more erratic. And when you have music playing, it's nice to have a little bit of smoothing. It just makes it visually more pleasing. And this debug graph, we'll go over this more in another video, but that's there. It can give you an idea of what the different sliders do. Let's just show off the decibels multiplier. Cool. Let's show what voltage looks like. Voltage is going to be they're really tiny values, so you'll have to kick this up to like 100 or higher to even see it. This is kind of what you see in a lot of visualizations that don't convert the output to decibels. You get really big pops in the low areas and just tiny stuff in the mids and highs. And maybe you want that, sometimes that looks cool visually. But if we do decibels, we get a more balanced readout. Set that back to 1. Okay, so that's a quick overview. Let's show the other 2 example scenes. So our first one is just kind of like a row of cubes. Then we've got one that's a row of cylinders. Let's play this one. Cool, let's test out another sound for this. How about a telephone? Oh, it's a modem, I think. If you know what that is, then you're dating yourself a little bit, like me. Let's do a regular telephone, I think. I suppose you're dating yourself too if you know that sound. And then let's show off the third visualizer. Go back to our scenes folder, and the other one is spheres. And all these visualizers use the same prefab audio visualizer script, and we're plugging in just a different prefab into each one of them. Okay, let's just grab my not so awesome song, knowing that you'll have your own really cool audio.
Check it out.
And each of the spheres, it glows based on its scale. So the bigger it gets, the more it glows. So that's how that works. And it's in the shader if you want to look into it. We can say animate scale Z and scale X. If I turn them off, it's just animating in Y. If I say Y and Z, it'll look like cylinders. If I say Y and X, it'll look like circles or ovals, kind of. And if I do both, it'll be spheres. We've got the scale multiplier. If you want to make the scale bigger, that's fine, but then you'll want to adjust. So if you click on the prefab parameter, it'll take you to where the prefabs are in the project window, or you can just go to this prefab folder. So let's look at the sphere. Here's the material, cube green. We'll right click it, select material, and we can select this material, and we've got this emissive amount. And so if we up the scale and now it's too bright, we can bring the emissive amount back down. Okay, let's bring that back up, and our multiplier back to, I think it was 0.18. And let's just show you again one more time what the smoothing looks like. It looks kind of cool. If we make it really high, like 8 seconds, then it's going to take 8 seconds for a sphere to scale back down. And so you get this kind of different look. Okay, and there you have it. That's an introduction to the 3 audio visualizer scenes. And hopefully that gets you started. There'll be a handful of other videos go into more of the specifics. So they'll be split up. Watch the other videos if you're interested in the theory and more of the details. And thanks for purchasing this asset. Hope it's helpful. All right, logging out. Thanks.